The air smelled like rain and hot dust. I stood in my sister Lara's crowded living room with a brown envelope in my hand, and my heart beating so hard it hurt. Her friends filled the sofas, judges in fine clothes, phones ready. On the TV, a live video of me was playing. In the video, Lara laughed and told people, "Saad is homeless by choice. She likes pity. It is her new hobby." My hands shook, but my voice was calm. "Today," I said, "we finish this." Lara rolled her eyes. "Here she is, the street queen." I opened the envelope and slid out the paper. The bank statement, the signed transfer, the receipts with my name on them. All the proof of the money I borrowed to save this same house. The house she was hosting this party in. The house where I slept on the floor for months when she needed me. I held the papers up and the room went quiet. "I didn't choose the street," I said. "You chose me for the street." Lara smirked. "Oh please." Smiled back. Then I pressed a button on my phone. The front door opened. A man in a neat shirt stepped in with 2 officers and a locksmith. The man carried a folder with a bright red stamp. The officers had calm faces that meant trouble. Lara's friends started whispering. "By order of the court," the man said, "we are here to enforce the lien and collect the debt." Lara's glass dropped and broke. "What debt?" "The debt you hid in my name," I said softly. "The one you thought I wouldn't find." The locksmith knelt by the front door and started changing the locks. The officers stood like statues. Everyone turned to me, to the papers, to the man with the folder. Lara rushed toward me. "Saad, stop this nonsense." I stepped back and raised the last document. A new deed with a surprise note she'd never seen. The crowd leaned in. The camera lights blinked. My finger touched the seal. And then the front gate creaked. Heavy boots walked in. A deeper shadow filled the doorway. A voice like gravel said, "Nobody moves." Lara went pale. I knew that voice. The lone shark. He lifted a hand. The room held its breath. The day my normal life broke started small and quiet. I was frying plantains in my tiny kitchen. The radio played soft music. The window was open. Dust from the road floated in. I had just saved enough for a new mattress. Felt safe. I felt like a person who was finally standing up after a long fall. Then my phone vibrated again and again and again. For missed calls from Lara. One voice note. I wiped my fingers and pressed play. "Saad, please pick up. They want to take the house. Today. Please, I am begging you." The pan hissed and the plantains burned. My heart dropped into my stomach. Lara's house was the house we grew up in. White tiles. Mango tree out back. Small cracks in the wall that looked like maps. Our mother's photo above the TV. Holding us with that proud smile. I could not picture strangers taking it. I called her back. She answered at once. I could hear crying voices, a banging sound. "They are at the gate," she gasped. "Saad, the bank people. They said I missed payments. Please, I just need time. Please." "What happened to the money from last year?" "Yes. The money you promised to pay. The money for the roof. What about the shop you started?" "I will explain later," she said fast. "Please just help me now. I don't want to lose everything. I don't want to lose Mama's house." Guilt grabbed my throat. I remembered being 9 years old, hiding behind Lara when older kids teased me. She was my big sister then, my shield. I owed her, right? Family helps family. That is what we tell ourselves when we are afraid to say no. "How much?" "Yes." There was a pause. 3 months, she said, voice small. 3 months of payments. "And the penalty." "How much, Lara?" She whispered a number so big it felt like a slap. I almost dropped the phone. It was more than I had. More than my savings. More than my whole year's pay. I looked around my room. I saw the small things I owned. A fan, a chair with a missing screw, a jar where I kept coins. A calendar with a red X over each day I didn't cry. "Please," Lara said. "I don't have anyone else." The radio sang a happy song like it didn't care about our fear. A drop of hot oil kissed my wrist and burned me back into the moment. "Okay," I said. "I will find it." I didn't eat that day. I didn't sit. I went from bank to bank. Each one told me the same thing. Your credit is small. Your job is small. The number is big. By evening my legs were heavy. I stood outside in the dark and watched buses cough smoke as they passed. Then my phone buzzed. A message from a friend of a friend. If you need fast money, call this man. He helps people. Be careful though. Called anyway. His name was Nuru. His voice was smooth like someone rubbing a stone. He asked for my name, my sister's name, the house address. He asked if I had a job. Told him yes. He laughed like that was a joke. He told me to come to his office. His office was not an office. It was a room in a building with a blue door. A fan that didn't move air. Calendar from 3 years ago. He wore a clean shirt and a too bright smile. You are brave, he said after I spoke. Brave or foolish? Just help me, I said. Please. He looked at my hands. He looked at my eyes. He looked like a man who counted fear like money. I can give you what you need, he said. But I need something real in return. Something that makes you come back. He put a paper in front of me. There were many small words. He tapped one line with his finger. Collateral, he said. A promise with teeth. What do you want? Asked. Your salary, he said. A slice of it. And a signature. If you miss, I take more. If you run, I follow. I looked at the door. Felt far away. Just for 3 months. Asked. He smiled wider. Just for 3 months. Sign. I told myself I could do anything for 3 months. I told myself I would not let my mother's photo see strangers walking through our home. The money came fast. The bank people left Lara's gate. The house stayed ours. She hugged me like I had pulled her from a river. You saved me, she whispered. That night, I slept on her floor because I was too tired to go back to my room. I stared at the ceiling and tried to count blessings, not costs. The first month I worked extra hours. Ate less. I sold my small TV. It still wasn't enough. Nuru sent a message with a smiling face that did not smile. Reminder, it said. Don't forget to be on time. I was late by 2 days. He added a fee. It felt like a nail pressed into my skin. The second month I moved out of my room. I told the landlord I would come back later. Packed my clothes into one bag. I slept in my car for a week behind a church, then on Lara's couch when she allowed it, then on my friend Blessing's floor. I took showers at work. Kept my head down. Told no one. Shame is a small thief that steals your voice. You don't hear it at first. You only notice when your mouth goes empty. One Saturday I walked past the market and heard my name in the air like a joke. Saad likes the street, someone said laughing. She says it makes her feel free. Stop. My stomach turned cold. 2 women were looking at a phone watching a video. I saw my face on the screen from a distance. Someone had taken a picture of me sleeping in my car. My hair was messy. My head was against the window. I looked like a thrown-away shoe. Who said that? The other woman asked. Her sister, the first one said. Lara. She said Saad is not suffering. She's just, how did she say it? Homeless by choice. The words landed like stones. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hide. I did neither. I just stood there and felt my heart shrink. That night, I waited for Lara to come home. When she walked in, I asked very softly, "Why did you say that about me?" She blinked. "Say what?" "That I chose this. That I like the street." She laughed like I told a silly story. "Oh, that. It was a joke." "People think it is true," I said. "It keeps people from asking me for money," she said, shrugging. "If they think you are doing fine, they leave us alone. Anyway, you're strong. You can handle it." I stared at her. A crack opened in my chest. "Lara, I borrowed money to save your house. I lost my room. I haven't sat on a soft bed in weeks." She waved a hand. "You will be fine. You always are." The next day the video spread. My boss called me into his office and spoke slowly like I might break. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Do you need time off?" We don't want trouble here. I shook my head and smiled with a mouth that felt like glass. I am fine. On the third week, Nuru sent 2 men to my workplace to check on me. They waited outside and watched me all day. Their eyes were heavy. When I walked out, one of them pointed at my shoes and said, "Don't run." I didn't. I went to Lara's that evening with a small bag of groceries. I wanted peace. I wanted my sister back. Her street was busy. Music played from a shop. Children chased each other, their slippers slapping the sand. I turned the corner and saw lights in her house. Laughter spilled out like water. I stepped in and froze. Party. Big plates. Big voices. Faces I knew from school, from church, from the neighborhood. Someone shouted, "Lara!" And she came out in a new dress, hugging people, taking photos in front of Mama's picture. Felt like a ghost. I stood near the door and watched her raise a glass. "To family," she said loudly. "To home." I walked up to her. "Can I talk to you?" She looked at me and smiled for the camera like we were close. Under the smile, her voice was sharp. "Not now. Don't make a scene. I need to talk to you about the next payment," I whispered. "It's due tomorrow. I'm short." She sighed. "Saad, please. Don't ruin my night." "It's not your night," I said, my heart shaking. "It's our mother's house. You promised to help." "Oh, here we go," she said. She turned to her friends and said much louder, "Don't mind her. She likes drama. That is why she is homeless by choice." Laughter bubbled around us. My face burned. My eyes stung. The words landed again, heavier. People looked at me like I was a problem to step around. I put the groceries on a chair and walked out into the dark. The music behind me was a wall. I stood by the mango tree and held my breath until it hurt. I thought of my mother's hands. I thought of little me and little Lara, sharing a broken lollipop and laughing. Where did that girl go? My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A photo of my car with a note. "Nice place to sleep. Pay tomorrow." I stared at the photo until it blurred. Something inside me clicked like a lock turning. I wiped my face. I took a long, slow breath. I made a plan. The next morning I contacted a friend from school named Kemi, who now worked at a small law firm. She listened to my story, every ugly part. She didn't say wow or sorry. She said, "Let's see everything." I showed her the loan papers. I showed her my bank messages. I showed her the receipts from the house payments. I showed her the video clip of Lara laughing about me. Kemi made notes. She asked questions. She asked for quiet. "We can't undo the loan," she said. "But we can make the truth visible. And maybe we can do more." "Like what?" Yes. She tapped the table with her pen. "Sometimes the person who thinks they are safest is standing on the weakest floor." We went to the bank. We asked for copies of the payment records. We asked for the name on the mortgage. The clerk frowned and left to speak to a manager. When she came back, she looked nervous. She gave Kemi a folder. Kemi opened it. Her eyes went narrow. Then she looked up at me. "Saad," she said, voice low. "Did you know about this second loan?" "Second loan," I repeated. The words tasted wrong. She turned the paper so I could see. "Loan. Signed 2 months ago. Against the same house. With a copy of my signature attached." My stomach dropped. The signature was mine but not mine. Name. My curve. My letters. But not from my hand. "Where did this come from?" I whispered. Kemi stared at the page. "Someone forged you." My mouth went dry. "Who?" The manager came out and asked us to keep our voices down. He explained, slow and careful, that a woman had come with ID and papers. She said her sister was helping her. The bank had copies. The dates matched the week I moved out of my room. Kemi thanked him. We left. We stood outside in the heat and noise of the street. Cars honked. A hawker shouted the price of oranges. The world carried on like nothing had broken. Kemi looked at me. "We need a magistrate," she said. "And we need to move fast." I nodded, but my body felt far away. The second loan pressed down on my shoulders. The forged paper burned my eyes. Lara's laugh rang in my head like a bell I couldn't stop. That evening I went back to Lara's house. The party smell was still in the air. Fried meat, perfume, sweat. A few cups still on the table. The floor sticky. I walked to the hallway where we used to race as kids. I touched the wall we used to draw on with chalk. I breathed out and in. Lara came out of her room, phone in hand, face bright. "Back again," she said. "Do you want to sleep on the couch or outside tonight?" "Neither," I said. "I want to show you something." She tilted her head. Annoyance crept into her eyes. "Sod, I'm tired." "Me too," I said. "Me too." Took out my phone. I pressed play on a recording of the bank manager's words. I watched her face as she listened to the part about the second loan. I watched her mouth tighten. She laughed when it ended. "That means nothing," she said. "You can't prove anything." "Maybe," I said softly. "But you know it is true." She shrugged and started to walk away. "Go cry to your friend. I have things to do." "Lara," I said, and she looked back at me over her shoulder. "When this ends, it will end in front of everyone." She rolled her eyes and opened her door. "Homeless by choice," she sang like it was a funny song and shut it in my face. I stood there a long time. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear now. From decision. I messaged Kemi. I messaged the court clerk. I messaged the locksmith. I messaged the officer who owed Kemi a favor. I printed copies and put them in a brown envelope. I slept 2 hours, then woke up and dressed in my cleanest shirt. By evening the plan was a living thing in my chest. It had eyes. It had teeth. When the sun went down I walked to Lara's street. Music again. Laughter again. More friends in the living room. Another show. Another chance for her to be the hero of a story she wrote with lies. I stepped through the door and the room noticed me. I held the envelope. I walked to the center. I felt the unseen thin wire that connects anger to courage, the one that cuts your hand but pulls you forward anyway. "Sod," Lara said, smiling to the cameras. "Back to entertain us." I raised the papers high and the room went quiet, and the locksmith reached for the door, and then a heavy shadow filled the doorway. Boots on tile. A voice like gravel. "Nobody moves." Lara's smile died. My breath stopped. The man's eyes found mine like a hook. "Time's up," said Nuru's man, and he lifted his hand toward me. The room seemed to shrink. The music from someone's phone died mid-beat. People looked from him to me to the brown envelope in my hands like it was a bomb. Nuru's man wasn't alone. 2 others slid in behind him, their faces blank, their arms crossed. One leaned against the wall near the door. The other moved to block the window. I clutched the envelope tighter. Lara's friends started murmuring, asking each other what was happening. Someone reached for their phone, but one of the men shook his head slowly, warning them without a word. Lara stepped forward, her face pale but still trying to act like she had control. "What is this? Who are you people?" "This is my home." Nuru's man ignored her. His eyes never left me. "You've been late too many times, Sod." Boss said to collect. My throat felt dry. I told him, "I'm making the payment tomorrow." He smiled, but it wasn't kind. "Tomorrow's a day too far." The man near the window pulled something from his pocket, a small folded paper. He tossed it onto the table. The red stamp was impossible to miss. "This," the gravel-voiced man said, "is your surrender notice. You don't pay tonight, we start taking things. Right here. Right now." A ripple went through the room. Lara's friends shifted uncomfortably, some looking away, others leaning forward to see. Lara's eyes darted between me and the men. "Wait, what do you mean her payment? What does that have to do with my house?" I almost laughed, but it came out as a sharp breath. "Everything, Lara. Everything." The men started moving. One went toward the TV. Another toward the side table with Mama's framed photo. "Don't touch that." Lara's voice cracked. She looked around at her guests, desperate now. Someone call the police. But no one moved. The man nearest me reached for the envelope. Boss will want whatever's in here too. I stepped back, keeping it out of his reach. This isn't for him. Oh! His tone was mocking, but he stopped moving. Then who's it for? I felt the heat rise in my chest. My plan was happening faster than I wanted, but maybe this was better. Maybe this was the moment. I turned slightly so the room could see me, my voice loud enough to cut through the murmurs. This envelope holds the truth. About the money I borrowed to save this house. About the second loan you, I looked directly at Laura, took in my name. Laura froze. The men exchanged glances. Nuru's man tilted his head. Second loan. I took a deep breath. Forged signature. Bank statements. Mortgage transfer. All of it. One of the men swore under his breath. The gravel-voiced one narrowed his eyes at Laura. You used her name for another loan while she still owed us? Laura opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her friends were staring at her like they'd never seen her before. Not just used my name, I said. She told everyone I was homeless by choice. She humiliated me to hide her lies. Silence. Even the air seemed to hold still. Then Gravel Voice stepped closer to Laura. His tone dangerously calm. You know what happens to people who play with other people's money. Lara's lip trembled. I can explain. No need, he said, turning to me. Boss will want this cleared tonight. Either she pays what you owe, or she owes us both. And then, before anyone could speak, a loud knock shook the front door. The locksmith and 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Miss Sod? One officer asked, his gaze locking onto me. We have the court order you filed this morning. Lara's face drained of color. The envelope in my hands suddenly felt like the sharpest weapon in the room. The officers stepped forward, unfolding the paper. We are here to execute a repossession and investigate fraud claims. Lara stumbled back. The gravel-voiced man smiled faintly, like this night had just become a game he was willing to watch. No. I took my first step toward finishing it. The room was split into 2 sides, people who knew me and people who didn't care who I was. The air smelled like fried meat gone cold. Lara stood in the middle, eyes darting between the officers and the men from Nuru's side like a trapped animal. Fraud, she said, trying to laugh but failing. This is a mistake. The taller officer unfolded the court order and read. His voice calm but carrying weight. Per magistrate court order dated this morning, we are here to seize this property pending investigation into alleged fraudulent loans and forgery. Whispers swept through the room. Phones came out. I saw 2 of her friends already recording. You can't do this in front of people. Lara snapped. You did worse in front of people, I said softly, but loud enough for the room to hear. The gravel-voiced man stepped closer to the officers, glancing at the papers. Does this order cover her debt to us? He asked, jerking his head toward me. The officer shook his head. This is a separate matter. Your issue is civil, unless you have proof of criminal threats. Nuru's man smiled thinly. Proof is easy to find. He looked back at me, and the message in his eyes was clear. This isn't over. I didn't flinch. The locksmith knelt by the front door, his tools clicking softly. Lara turned to him, panicked. Stop. This is my house. No, I said, stepping forward. It's the bank's house now, until the court decides whose name deserves to be on it. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're doing this because of some joke I made. You're ruining your own blood over pride. I took a step closer, meeting her eyes. I slept in my car for weeks because of you. I worked double shifts to pay your debt. And while I was doing that, you told strangers I chose this life. It's not pride, Lara. It's justice. The taller officer moved toward the hallway. We'll need to catalog valuables. Please cooperate. One of Nuru's men let out a low whistle. Looks like you've got 2 problems tonight, sweetheart, he said to Lara. She spun on him. You stay out of this. But he only grinned and leaned back against the wall, enjoying the show. I turned to Kemi, who had arrived quietly in the corner, clutching a file. She stepped forward now, flipping it open. "Officers, we also have bank records showing the second loan with a forged signature, plus eyewitness statements from the bank staff." She glanced at Lara. "And if needed, we have a handwriting expert ready to testify." Lara's voice went high and brittle. "You're lying." "Am I?" Kemi handed the papers to the officer. "Because your own handwriting from the shop lease matches the forged loan documents perfectly." The officer scanned the pages, his brow furrowing. He looked at Lara. "You need to come with us to answer these allegations." Lara's breath came fast. "No, I'm not going anywhere." That's when Gravel Voice chuckled low, and the sound made everyone turn. "Looks like tonight's going to be expensive for someone," he said. "And if I were you, darling, I'd pick which debt you'd rather pay first." Lara's shoulders sagged. For the first time she looked small, beaten. But then her eyes flicked toward me, and I saw the shift, the stubborn glint. She wasn't giving up. "You think you've won," she hissed. "You've just made an enemy who knows every weakness you have." I stepped back, my pulse thudding in my ears. "Then I guess I'll have to close every door before you can walk through it." The officer gestured toward the door. "Let's go." But just as they moved to take her, Lara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face changed. Fear, then shock, then something like triumph. She looked straight at me. "You don't know who you're messing with," she said. "And after tonight, you'll wish you'd stayed in that car." The gravel-voiced man's smile widened like he knew something I didn't. "Oh, this just got interesting." And then the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, followed by a crash in the kitchen and the sound of someone running. The darkness wasn't silent. It was alive, buzzing with whispers, shuffling feet, and the nervous scrape of chairs on tile. Someone near the door gasped. Glass shattered in the kitchen again, followed by a hiss of running water or maybe spilled drinks. "Stay where you are," one of the officers barked, his voice sharp, but the darkness made it useless. I held the envelope to my chest, my other hand gripping the edge of a table. In the blackness, every sound felt closer than it should have been. Then a single beam of light cut through, a flashlight from the taller officer. The beam swung across the room, catching faces frozen in fear. But one face was missing. Lara. The light swung again toward the hallway. Me. Toward the kitchen. Only broken plates and a swinging cabinet door. "She's gone," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The officer moved toward the back door, his beam catching fresh muddy footprints. He swore under his breath and gestured to his partner. "Call it in. Block the street." The gravel-voiced man chuckled from the shadows, his teeth flashing in the light for a second. "Looks like your little show just lost its star." I stepped toward him. "If you know where she went." He cut me off with a slow shake of his head. "Don't look at me. But I know a runner when I see one. And your sister's not just running from you, sweetheart. She's running from me too." The shorter officer returned from the front door, his face tight. "Backup's 5 minutes out. Streets already crowded. Someone tipped people off." Course. Lara always had a way of getting ahead. Even now. Kemi stepped to my side, her voice low. "Sod, she's going to hide whatever leverage she has. You need to think ahead. She'll try to burn every bridge you could use against her." I nodded slowly, the thought settling in my stomach like a stone. The taller officer turned to me. "We'll find her. But if there's anything she could use to escape the fraud charge, now's the time to tell us." I hesitated. There was something. Last year, before the roof repair, Lara had mentioned a friend in city records, someone who could fix paperwork for a price. At the time, I'd brushed it off as one of her usual exaggerations. But now, I remembered the way she'd smirked when the bank approved things too quickly. If that friend was still around, Lara could make the forged loan vanish, or worse, make it look like I had taken it. I told the officers. The taller one's expression hardened. "If she's heading there, We need to move before the trail goes cold. Problem, Gravel voice interrupted, stepping into the beam. Boss still expects his money. And if she gets herself protected before I get paid? He trailed off, smiling like a cat. What? Asked sharply. I might have to make the debt portable. You know, shift it from one sister to the other. The threat was clear. I'm already paying you, I snapped. Not enough. Not fast enough. And if she disappears, I'll need insurance. His eyes dropped to the envelope in my hand. I tightened my grip. You'll take this over my dead body. The gravel-voiced man smiled wider, like I'd just given him an idea he liked. The officers ignored him and moved toward the back door. We'll start at City Records, the taller one said. If she's got a fixer, we'll find them. But before we could leave, Kemi caught my arm. Her whisper was urgent. If Lara's smart, she won't go straight there. She'll go to the one place you won't expect her to. I frowned. And where's that? Kemi's eyes were sharp. Your old apartment. The image hit me like a slap. My bare old room, the corner closet where I'd once kept all my important papers before moving out. If anything had been left behind, bank copies, old IDs, she could use them to build her escape. We didn't have time to check both places. If I chose wrong, Lara could erase the evidence or vanish entirely. The taller officer looked at me. Where first? You decide now. I opened my mouth to answer. And then a phone rang. Not mine. Not Kemi's. It was coming from the envelope in my hands. The room went silent except for that muffled ring. I slid the flap open and froze. Inside, along with the papers, was a phone I'd never seen before. The caller ID said only, "Stop following me." The officers exchanged glances. Gravel voice let out a low whistle. Well, he said, looks like Big Sister wants to talk. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button, my heart hammering. The ring stopped just as my thumb touched the green icon. My stomach twisted. Before I could decide what to do, the phone rang again. Same number, same name. Stop following me. I pressed answer. The line clicked, and then her voice came, low and mocking. You've made quite a scene, little sister. Where are you, Lara? Asked, keeping my voice flat. A light laugh. Far enough to watch you scramble. Close enough to see the sweat on your forehead. I turned toward the window, scanning the street beyond the curtain. Crowds, flickering lights, motorbikes. But no clear face. You can't hide from the court, I said. The officers, she interrupted, will be too busy chasing paperwork that doesn't exist. By the time they find it, this will all be your debt. Every kobo, every signature. You forged my name. She gave a small sigh, like she was explaining something to a child. I borrowed your name, Sod. You weren't using it. Besides, you'll survive. You always do. I, on the other hand, can't afford to lose this house. My grip on the phone tightened. You mean our mother's house, the one I saved for you. That's the thing, Sod. Her tone sharpened. It was never for me. It was for you. I just learned to play the part better. The gravel-voiced man stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. He tilted his head as if trying to hear her through the tiny speaker. Lara's voice lowered to a hiss. Here's how this will go. You stop chasing me, you convince Nuru's dogs to back off, and I'll make sure the rest of this mess disappears quietly. Or you keep going, and I make one call that ruins you in ways you can't imagine. What call? Yes. Silence for a heartbeat. Then, you think I don't know about the missing funds from your office last year? The little borrowing you never paid back. My chest tightened. That's not. Oh, don't bother. I still have the bank screenshots. Imagine how your boss will react when he sees them, paired with a very convincing story about why you borrowed money from a loan shark. You'll lose your job before the week ends. The officers were watching me now, trying to read my face. Kemi stepped closer, whispering, "Don't engage. Get her to keep talking." I swallowed hard. So that's your plan. Blackmail your own sister. That's not blackmail, darling. That's incentive. I could hear her smiling. You have until tomorrow night to decide. After that, the choice is mine. The line went dead. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the faint scrape of the locksmith's tools. The taller officer spoke first. What was that about missing funds? I shook my head. It's not what she made it sound like. She's twisting it. But my voice was thinner than I wanted it to be. The gravel-voiced man smiled slowly. Looks like your sister's better at this game than you thought. Boss will love that. Kemi grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the hallway. We have to move. She's not going to City Records. She's going somewhere she can bury that evidence against you before you have a chance to clear your name. The taller officer stepped in front of us. If there's even a chance she's telling the truth about those screenshots, we need to be careful. If your reputation's damaged, the court will hesitate to take your word against hers. My mind was a storm. Lara was always good at finding the one weak spot to hit. And she was right, if she got those screenshots into the wrong hands, the narrative would flip. I'd be the fraud. She'd be the victim. Kemi's voice cut through. We're not going to let her control this. But we can't chase her blind. We need someone who knows where she'd hide when things get bad. I stared at her, an idea forming. Blessing, I said. My old friend Blessing. One of the few people Lara still owed favors to. If anyone could guess her hiding place, it was her. But reaching Blessing meant going into a part of the city even the police didn't like going after dark. Kemi didn't flinch. Then that's where we're going. The officers exchanged glances but didn't follow. We'll keep working the City Records lead, the taller one said. But if she's half as connected as she sounds, you'd better move fast. The locksmith finally stood, tools in hand. Locks are changed. Anyone without a key isn't getting back in. Gravel voice smirked. Unless they're smart enough to find a window. I ignored him and pushed the front door open. The night outside was thick with noise. Motorcycles growling, vendors shouting, music spilling from open doors. Somewhere in that noise, Lara was already moving 2 steps ahead. We stepped into the street, the brown envelope tucked under my arm, the burner phone still warm in my hand. Kemi looked at me. Blessing first. Then we find a way to take Lara's teeth away before she takes yours. But as we started walking toward the taxi stand, my own phone buzzed. Text. No number, just words. You've got 1 hour before I disappear. And below it a location pin. The pin pulsed on my phone screen like a heartbeat. A market district. Late at night. Kemi leaned over to look. That's not her style, she said slowly. Too public. Too messy. Which means it's a trap, I said. She nodded. But if we don't go, she controls the clock. She'll vanish, and we'll spend weeks chasing shadows. Taxi ride was short but tense. Streetlights flickered over the cracked roads, casting everything in jumpy light. The market was still alive. Half its stalls lit with naked bulbs, the smell of roasted corn mixing with fried oil and petrol fumes. I scanned the crowd. Nothing. No sign of Lara. Then the burner phone rang. Same ID, stop following me. Answered. Look left, Lara said. Turn. She was leaning against a fabric stall, dressed down in jeans and a scarf, blending into the night crowd. She was smiling, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. You came, she said. You left me no choice. Her gaze flicked to the brown envelope under my arm. That's mine. I held it tighter. It's evidence. Her smile widened. And you think evidence matters more than leverage? Before I could answer, 2 men stepped out from behind her. Not Nuru's men. These were bigger, meaner looking, and I didn't recognize them. One held a plastic folder. The other, a phone with a video already queued up. She gestured to them. This is why you came. A gift. See, I'm generous. The man with the phone pressed play. My breath caught. It was me. Taken from some angle I didn't remember. Grainy footage but clear enough. I was at my office desk counting cash. then slipping a bundle into my bag. Kemi stepped forward. This is edited. It's fake. Lara tilted her head. Oh, maybe. But your boss won't wait for proof before firing her. And once she's unemployed, paying Nuru becomes impossible. The folder opened. Bank screenshots. Name. Transfers I didn't make. Here's my offer, Lara said, her voice low enough for only us to hear. You hand over the envelope. You call off the officers. You walk away. In return, I delete everything. You get your quiet life back. Kemi hissed under her breath. She's bluffing. If you give her the envelope, you've got nothing left to fight her with. I swallowed hard. And if I don't? Lara's smile sharpened. Then I send this video to your boss, Nuru, and half the city. You'll be the fraud, the liar, the thief. And no one will remember what I did. She was right about one thing. If that video spread, my reputation would be gone before I could prove anything. I felt the brown envelope under my arm like it weighed 10 kilos. Inside was every piece of proof I'd worked for. Kemi's hours of digging, the court filings, the forged loan papers. Losing it meant losing the case. Keeping it meant risking everything. I opened my mouth to answer. And a voice behind me growled. She's not leaving with that. Turn. Gravel voice. He was flanked by two of Nuru's men. Eyes cold, shoulders squared. Lara's smile faltered for the first time. This isn't your business. It's my business, Gravel voice said, stepping closer. When my money's tied to her staying in one piece. He nodded at me. Boss says the debt's hers until you pay. And if you're planning to ruin her before she can, that ruins us too. The market crowd had started to notice. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Lara's men shifted their weight, ready for trouble. Nuru's men did the same. Kemi's voice was tight in my ear. Saad, this is going to break bad in seconds. You need to choose. Give her the envelope and walk, or hold it and we fight our way out. Lara's eyes locked on mine. Last chance. Decide. The noise of the market swelled, the sound of too many people holding their breath. I gripped the envelope so tight my knuckles ached. And then I made my move. I didn't give myself time to think. I turned my body slightly, shielding the envelope from Lara and her men. I'm not giving it to you, I said, loud enough for both groups to hear. Her smile vanished. Then you've chosen your funeral. Before I could react, one of her men lunged. Kemi yanked me back, but his fingers grazed the edge of the envelope. Gravel voice stepped between us, shoving him hard. The market erupted. Stalls rattled as vendors backed away. A woman screamed. Someone knocked over a table of tomatoes, red spheres rolling underfoot. Lara shouted something I couldn't catch. Her other man pulled a small blade from his belt. Gravel voice moved faster, his fist connecting with the man's jaw. The crowd gasped. Go! Kemi hissed in my ear, pushing me toward a narrow alley between stalls. We ran. Behind us, shouts turned into chaos. Men swearing, people shouting for the police, vendors yelling about broken goods. The envelope felt heavier with every step. But as we rounded the corner, a dark shape blocked the alley. Nuru. He stood there alone, wearing the same calm, pressed shirt as the day I met him. His hands were in his pockets, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Evening, Saad, he said softly. You've been busy. Kemi froze beside me. Nuru's gaze dropped to the envelope. That belongs to me now. No, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This has nothing to do with our deal. Everything you do has to do with our deal, he replied. When you took my money, you became my investment. And I don't let my investments carry around something that could get them killed before I'm paid. He stepped closer. The alley walls seemed to press in. You hand that to me, and maybe I'll give you one more week, he said. Keep it, and I walk away right now. You know what happens after that. I glanced behind. The chaos in the market was spilling into the alley. Lara's men, Gravel voice, a few curious bystanders. I was trapped between two dangers. I need this to clear my name, I said. You need me more, Nuru said. His voice was almost gentle, and that made it worse. Kemi's hand tightened on my arm. Sod. But then, from the mouth of the alley, Lara's voice cut through the noise. She's lying to you, Nuru, she shouted. That envelope has proof she forged the second loan in your name. She's going to the police with it. My blood ran cold. It was a perfect lie. All Nuru had to do was believe it for half a second, and I was finished. His eyes locked on mine. Is that true? The weight of the envelope burned against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. Kemi whispered, "Don't hand it to him. If you do, Lara wins." But if you don't? The crowd noise swelled. Lara was pushing closer, shoving past people, her face bright with cruel triumph. Nuru reached out his hand, palm open. Last chance, Sod. I tightened my grip. And then his other hand moved, faster than I expected, grabbing my wrist, twisting hard. Envelope slipped. Lara lunged, her fingers brushing the paper. But Nuru was quicker. He caught it, stepped back and tucked it under his arm. Lara froze. I felt the hollow in my chest as the reality sank in. Everything I'd worked for, gone in a single moment. Nuru smiled faintly. I think I'll hold on to this until I decide who it's worth more to. And just like that, he turned and walked away into the crowd, the envelope with him. Lara's eyes found mine. She didn't speak, but the victory in her face was worse than words. Kemi pulled me toward the far end of the alley. We need to go now. Before both of them decide you're not worth keeping alive. We ran, my breath ragged, the market noise fading behind us. Every step felt heavier. By the time we reached the taxi stand, I knew I was at the lowest point I'd ever been. No envelope, no proof, no leverage, just my word against hers. And now Nuru held the only thing that could tip the balance. I slumped into the back seat, my voice barely a whisper. We've lost. Kemi stared straight ahead. Only if we stop now. And I have one last move. But you're not going to like it. I looked at her, my chest still heaving. What is it? She turned to me, her eyes sharp. We're going to steal from Nuru. The word steal sat heavy in the air between us. Kemi didn't flinch when she said it. She just looked at me like the decision was already made. I shook my head. Kemi, you've seen what his men are like. You've seen him. If we get caught, we improvise, she said. If we do nothing, Lara wins. You lose everything. And Nuru doesn't keep that envelope in his office. He's too paranoid for that. I leaned back in the taxi seat, staring out at the blur of streetlights. Where then? Kemi's lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. He keeps everything in one place. The old warehouse by the docks. My cousin used to run security there before Nuru took over. Cameras, a few guards, nothing we can't handle. Nothing we can't handle? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She ignored the sarcasm. We go tonight. The longer we wait, the tighter he'll lock it down. I knew she was right, but my pulse was already pounding. This wasn't just dangerous. It was crossing a line I could never uncross. We reached the docks close to midnight. The air smelled of salt and rust, the faint hum of generators blending with the creak of old metal. The warehouse loomed ahead, its corrugated walls streaked with years of rain and neglect. Kemi crouched behind a stack of cargo crates, pointing out the two guards at the main entrance. They rotate every 20 minutes. Back entrance is less watched, but there's a camera. We'll need to blind it for 30 seconds. And how do we do that? I whispered. She held up a small device with wires and a blinking light. Signal jammer. Bought it off a guy who owes me. I stared at her. You've been planning this kind of thing for a while. He smirked. Let's just say Lara's not the first snake I've had to deal with. We waited until the guards shifted position, then moved fast and low along the shadows. Kemi set the jammer against the wall under the camera. It crackled softly, the red light blinking faster. Go, she whispered. I slipped through the side door, heart hammering in my ears. Inside, the warehouse was dim, lit by a few bare bulbs swinging from the ceiling. Metal shelves lined the walls, stacked with crates, locked boxes, and thick binders. We kept low, moving toward a small office in the far corner, the only part of the warehouse with a closed door. Kemi's fingers flew over the lock, a faint click sounding after less than a minute. We slipped inside. The office smelled of cigarette smoke and oil. Papers were scattered across the desk, but my eyes went straight to the locked metal cabinet in the corner. Kemi pulled a set of pics from her pocket. "Keep watch," she murmured. I turned toward the door, my nerves prickling. Somewhere outside, a guard's voice echoed faintly. And click. The cabinet opened. Inside were neat stacks of envelopes, each with a name written in bold marker. My stomach knotted when I saw mine. Kemi handed it to me. I opened it just enough to glimpse the court documents, the forged loan papers, the bank records. All there. But there was something else. Another envelope, this one marked with Lara's name. I hesitated. "Take it," Kemi said. I did. If Lara thought she had leverage, this might be my way to turn the tables. We were about to leave when a shadow filled the doorway. Gravel voice. "Well, well," he said, leaning against the frame. I was wondering who'd be dumb enough to try this. His gaze dropped to the envelopes in my hands. He smiled slowly. "Boss is going to be very interested in what you two were planning to do with those." Kemi's jaw tightened. My pulse roared in my ears. And then, from somewhere deeper in the warehouse, Nuru's voice called out. Calm, curious, and far too close. "What's going on in there?" Gravel voice's eyes never left mine as Nuru's footsteps echoed closer. I could feel the paper of both envelopes warm against my palms, the weight of everything I had fought for pressed between my fingers. Nuru stepped into the doorway, his shirt immaculate, his expression unreadable. His gaze moved from me to Kemi, then to the open cabinet. I assume there's a good explanation for this. Kemi opened her mouth, but I spoke first. "Yes, you've been holding something that doesn't belong to you. I came to take it back." A slow smile touched his lips. "And in the process you broke into my property. That puts you in my pocket forever." I took a step forward, holding out the envelope with Lara's name on it. "Not if I give you something worth more than me." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Go on." "This," I said, tapping the envelope, "is proof Lara forged another set of documents, this time in your name. Bank transfers, fake IDs, signatures. If this lands in the hands of the right investigator, you're looking at years inside. But if we make a deal, you get to keep it buried." Gravel voice smirk faltered. Nuru's eyes darkened, the amusement gone. "And in return, you give me mine back. No more debt. No more threats. You stay out of my life." The room was thick with silence. I could feel Kemi tense beside me. Finally Nuru reached out. I placed Lara's envelope in his hand. His fingers tapped the paper once before he handed me mine. "You've got nerve," he said quietly. "I like that. But understand something, Sod, this was your one free pass. Cross me again, and no envelope will save you." He nodded. "Fair." He stepped aside. "Go before I change my mind." We didn't waste a second. Kemi and I moved fast, out of the warehouse, through the docks, into the night. My lungs didn't relax until the glow of the city swallowed us again. By morning we were at the magistrate's office. I handed over the documents, every forged page, every transfer Lara had tried to hide. The investigator's eyes lit up as he scanned them. "This is more than enough," he said. "We'll have her in custody by tonight." And they did. I watched from across the street as officers led Lara out of a small cafe in handcuffs. Her hair was perfect, her lips painted, but her eyes were wild, darting like a trapped bird. He saw me. I didn't smile. Weeks later the house was mine. Not because I wanted it, but because the court ruled it payment for the debt she had buried me under. I kept the mango tree, the photo of Mama, the cracked tiles. The rest I sold. Kemi asked me once if I felt sorry for Lara. "No," I said. I feel sorry for the girl she used to be. We stood outside the gate that day, and for the first time in months, the air felt light. Justice doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase the nights I slept in my car or the whispers in the market. But it does give you back your voice, and I wasn't planning to lose mine again. Because if Lara ever tried to crawl out of the hole she dug, I'd be right there, holding the shovel,